Sweeping US controls on the sale of chips to China will have a limited impact on Taiwan. That's the message from the economy minister. The country's biggest clean energy trade fair showcases emerging energy technologies. Banned in China, but about to be welcomed in Hong Kong. Taiwan's custard apple farmers are thrown a lifeline. Plus, going virtual, the high-tech project that's taking Taiwan art to a whole new audience. A warm welcome to Taiwan Plus News. I'm Yin Khvat. Taiwan's economy minister says wide-ranging US export controls on semiconductors to China will have a limited impact on Taiwanese companies. The US announced the new restrictions earlier this month in a bid to contain Beijing's tech and military ambitions. James Chater reports.
Sweeping new US export controls will restrict American companies from exporting high-performance chips to China and will forbid US citizens from working in Chinese chip companies. This will hamper Chinese efforts to become self-sufficient in advanced semiconductors, the backbone of most modern devices. Global chip stocks dropped on the US announcement earlier this month, and with more than 90% of the world's most advanced chips produced in Taiwan, there were fears the country may get caught in the crossfire. But Taiwan's economy minister has now tried to mitigate those concerns.
目前都是美国的这些设计公司设计出来的，那设计了以后请台湾代工。那这些晶片，它现在管制的只有在这种高效运算，那所以那个量不多。台积电目前这样的一个技术目前其实是没有人可以取代了。
Industry insiders agree and are confident the country should be able to weather stormy geopolitical waters.
全球供应链扮演一个不可或缺的一个角色，那再加上台湾的这个产业链的聚落的完整跟先进的制程，我们其实对台湾半导体的行业其实是后来所谓的后市都非常的具有信心。
In China, fears are mounting the new restrictions will add pressure to an already strained economy. This week, Beijing delayed without explanation the release of its third quarter economic data, widely forecasted to show COVID-0 lockdowns continuing to stymie growth. Beijing has accused the US of weaponizing technology in the export controls. Taiwanese officials say any response will put national interest first.
不管是政府将来的政策，或者是企业自己的决策，过以后都要把国家安全跟 所谓的企业韧性放在优先的考量。
US-China tech competition shows no signs of slowing down, and as the impact of Washington's restrictions ripple through global supply chains, Taiwan, once again, will have to tread a fine line. Karma Xu and James Chater for Taiwan Plus.
Taiwan's military has conducted live fire drills in the outlying islands of Penghu. The drills are a routine monthly exercise and use tanks and armoured vehicles to practice defending the coast against a simulated invasion from China. Officials say that due to bad weather, some of the shooting practice was cancelled. In recent months, several civilian and military drones have flown near Taiwan's outlying islands. Military officials on Penghu have outlined how they will respond if any more are spotted.
依据国防部的指导， 从发现无人机开始，会实施监控并示警。若发现它进入我相关的营区范围内，会实施击落。
A district prosecutor in Taiwan's northern city of Taoyuan has charged 3 people with human trafficking. The suspects are accused of luring victims with the intent to sell their organs to clients in Cambodia. Police say that messages found on the suspects' phones mentioned words such as organ harvesting and showed contact with a buyer. Victims said they were told they needed to complete liver, kidney and other health checkups to get a work visa. It's just the latest in a string of human trafficking cases involving Taiwanese citizens in Southeast Asia in recent months. Taiwan's government says the number of cases has dropped dramatically thanks to a public information campaign. North Korea has fired artillery shells near its sea boundaries with South Korea. According to a statement from South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, the North fired about 100 shells off its west coast and 150 off its east. Pyongyang says the shelling is in response to ongoing drills by the South, which it sees as preparation for war. South Korea says the North's actions undermine peace on the Korean Peninsula. Crews have restored part of a road leading to a mountain resort in northeastern Taiwan, where 302 tourists were stranded following Tropical Storm Nesat. Rescuers had earlier reached the resort on foot with medicine and fuel. With road access partially restored, 187 of the trapped tourists have already safely departed. Full repairs of the road are expected to take up to a month. Meanwhile, farmers are counting the cost. Officials say the storm has caused around $176,000 of damage to crops. Taiwan's largest trade show for the green energy industry, Energy Taiwan, kicked off in Taipei on Wednesday. With the world looking to eliminate carbon emissions, registered booths are up 29% from last year. Yu Jinghuang has more.
Solar panels are everywhere at Taiwan's biggest green energy exhibition, Energy Taiwan. Solar power has been a dominant force in clean energy for years, but as countries around the world seek to move away from fossil fuels, a variety of new energy sources are being explored, and Taiwan wants to be at the forefront.
那么我们也会持续的投入前瞻技术的研发，以及其他各种绿色能源的开发。那么这个包括氢能、地热、海洋能以及生质能等，都是我们的发展重点。
That means there's a greater emphasis this year on emerging energy, such as hydrogen, and working closely with other countries that have experience with these new technologies.
In hydrogen, we have really high ambitions in the UK, and we're aiming to get to 10 gigawatts by 2030 of hydrogen, which is a really high ambition. So we're really excited also to support Taiwan's ambitions and hope that we'll see a really strong partnership between the UK and Taiwan.
But the energy transition is not just changing where people get electricity. It's also about how people live their daily lives.
Several countries across the world aim to stop selling gas-powered cars completely by 2030. Taiwan is also trying to catch up to that trend, aiming for electric cars to dominate the market by 2040, which means that cars like this one behind me will be more common outside the exhibition center and on the road.
Transitioning away from fossil fuels is a huge challenge facing countries worldwide. But this exhibition shows that it's also an opportunity, one in which governments and enterprises can work together to forge a new world. James Renner, Irene Wu, and Yu Jinghuang for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan will allow people already vaccinated with the country's homegrown Medigen vaccine to take another course of shots if they need to travel abroad. Over 1 million people in Taiwan have received courses of Medigen, but the vaccine is not widely recognized outside the country. That's the case in Japan, where it is not on the government's approved list. People vaccinated with Medigen must present a negative PCR test at a cost of over $100 if they wish to enter the country. From Wednesday, people in Taiwan may take between 1 and 3 shots of an alternative vaccine, depending on their travel plans. They can choose from other vaccines approved in the country. These include Pfizer-BioNTech, Moderna, and AstraZeneca. A year after China banned imports of Taiwanese custard apples, farmers who grow the fruit have found a new market. As John Van Trieste reports, Taiwan custard apples could be available for pre-order there within weeks.
Taiwan's custard apple farmers have had a rough year. China, once a major importer, has banned Taiwan exports of the fruit, claiming it's found pests in shipments. To date, 15,000 tons have been left with no one to buy them. But while part of China, Hong Kong has its own customs rules and is offering Taiwan farmers some hope. After talks with a Taiwanese retailer, 4 supermarkets there have agreed to put Taiwan custard apples on their shelves.
那这次我们特别跟香港的超市做实体的结盟，那也把这个台东的这个4家开始在10月下旬做预售。
In the southeastern county of Taidong, a major custard apple growing region, the local government has stepped in to help farmers get rid of pests. But setting quality standards isn't something it can do on its own.
凤梨世家出口，那这个部分因为涉及到关税以及农产检疫，这部分的确是要请中央来协助台东县政府。
Farmers also hope for government help dealing with high freight costs, a result of the COVID pandemic's impact on flight numbers. But they are hopeful that Hong Kong could be a turning point.
品质继续维持住，然后顾好，然后让它可以更多的世界上更多的国家可以知道，这对我们来讲一定是好事。
If more markets accept Taiwan's custard apples, the hard times brought on by China's ban could be on their way out. Klein Wang and John Van Trieste for Taiwan Plus.
Now, staying on Hong Kong, the territory's top official, John Lee, has made his first policy address since taking office on July 1st. In a 2.5-hour speech, Lee announced policies to reverse the territory's declining fortunes as it enters another technical recession. These include a new visa for high earners and graduates of top universities. Hong Kong's ongoing political crackdown and tight zero-COVID restrictions have led to foreign and local residents moving out. Over the past 2 years, the workforce has fallen by about 140,000, and the economy has contracted year on year for 2 straight quarters. Lee hopes new talent can turn that around.
推出高端人才通行證計劃，為期2年。合資格嘅人才包括過去1年嘅年薪係達到港幣250萬元或者以上嘅人士，以及畢業喺全球100強大學，並且喺過去5年內累積3年或者以上工作經驗嘅人士。呢2類人士可以獲發為期2年嘅通行證嚟香港發展。
Now, new technology is bringing a classic Taiwan painting to a whole new audience. Eric Gao takes a look.
A new way to enjoy classic art. A project by Taiwan's public television service uses the latest technology to bring the classic painting, Lotus Pond, into cyberspace with an interactive virtual reality experience.
是把画家在想象的这一块，看他这个绘画的历程等等，这些我觉得都把它给描写，然后让观众可以用沉浸的方式去感受。
Artist Ling Yusan made the painting in 1930. He stayed by the pond he was painting the entire night, waiting for the perfect moment when the lotus blossomed. Now, viewers don't have to go through all that. They can put on this headset to experience all the details of the painting. They can even see things from the perspective of a dragonfly buzzing over the pond, a frog jumping on the lotus leaves, or a fish swimming in the water.
在这个花的中间走，甚至到水底下，多种层次的感觉那个美。
The VR project is part of government efforts to bring Taiwan's art and culture to a wider audience.
把文化科技紧紧的相系，那我们很高兴，我们的文化可以乘着科技的翅膀向世界飞翔，把台湾的文化推到全世界。
The Lotus Pond VR exhibit will be on display at the National Taiwan Museum of Fine Arts until the end of October. Later, it will be shown at international film festivals and cultural events, bringing this new take on a classic painting to an even greater audience. Patrick Chen, Irene Wu, and Eric Gao for Taiwan Plus.
Coming up, a team from Taiwan takes the top spot in a competition that's all about saving lives in the toughest conditions. Details after the break.
This is 我们台湾人要送给台湾的礼物。
我们都清楚，我们都在一起，在完成一件事情。
这是我们的根。
For more stories from around the world and from right here in Yin County, Taiwan, visit www.taiwanplus.com. Right? He says moo.
Today, 台湾人要了解的是，我们跟这片土地关系里面，它是跟你的生命的根源息息相关。像这个红冠、扁柏等等，他们都是台湾的神明。长期以来，我一直误以为我在抢救山林，直到最近10年来，我才了解，我从来没有抢救山林，而是山林从来在抢救我们。我们的地球46亿年来，我们就是它的一部分，它就是我们共同的灵魂，流传在我的血液中，也流动在树叶当中。
Welcome back. You're watching Taiwan Plus News. Taiwan is planning to donate bulletproof vests to police in Haiti to help the Caribbean country tackle an ongoing security and humanitarian crisis. Since the assassination of its president in July 2021, Haiti has been paralyzed by unrest. A coalition of gangs has prevented the distribution of diesel and gasoline for over a month, with looting and gang shootouts becoming increasingly common. More than 4 million Haitians currently face acute food insecurity. Haiti is one of Taiwan's 14 remaining diplomatic allies. The Foreign Ministry's announcement of the donation comes days after Canada and the United States delivered tactical and armoured vehicles and other supplies to the Haitian National Police. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia's dependence on Iranian-made drones shows Moscow is bankrupt politically and militarily.
Маємо пам'ятати, що сам факт звернення Росії по таку допомогу до Ірану є визнанням Кремлем свого військово-політичного банкрутства. Десятиліттями вони витрачали мільярди доларів на свій ВПК, а у підсумку пішли на поклон в Тегеран, щоб отримати доволі прості дрони і ракети.
Russia unleashed dozens of kamikaze drones on Ukraine on Monday, hitting energy infrastructure and killing 5 people in the capital, Kyiv. Ukraine says these were Iranian-made Shahed 136 attack drones. Tehran has denied supplying the weapons to Russia, an assertion Washington says is false. The Kremlin says it has no information about whether or not Iranian drones were used. US President Joe Biden is set to announce the release of 15 million barrels of oil from the country's emergency reserve. He's trying to keep American oil prices and inflation stable ahead of midterm elections. Governments around the world are under pressure over rising energy and living costs. In Europe, thousands have taken to the streets over the issue, as Louise Watt now reports.
Clashes in the French capital Paris on Tuesday as protesters demand higher wages. Tens of thousands of people took to the streets across France as unions representing transport workers, teachers and medical staff staged a mass walkout, calling for their pay to keep up with rising inflation.
L'évolution, bien évidemment, du coût de la vie dans le pays tout à fait importante. Il y a l'augmentation des produits de première nécessité, mais il y a aussi l'augmentation très forte, d'une façon très importante, de l'énergie dans notre pays. Et donc, excusez-moi, à partir de là, donc, il y a ces réactions qui interviennent sur les salaires.
The French government isn't the only one under pressure. Other European countries have seen protests in recent weeks, including Germany and Italy, which are both facing recession. The cost of living across Europe has been pushed up by the war in Ukraine. The continent has long depended on Russian oil and gas imports, and energy prices have soared following Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. The knock-on inflation is adding to other economic woes in Europe.
There are structural issues. There are issues with how they handled COVID. There are issues with the state of the world economy. There are issues with the fiscal balance. The fact is that the world is hurting right now. The US is likely to have a recession. China is posting growth rates that we haven't, lows that we haven't seen in 40 years. So it's not that Europe is alone in this, but Europe seems to have been hit particularly badly because of the large number of things that are hitting it.
The International Monetary Fund said last week that Asia remains a relatively bright spot in an increasingly dimming global economy. But it still cut growth forecasts for the region this year to 4%, well below the 5.5% average seen over the last 20 years. Many Asian economies like Taiwan are driven by exports, so economists say they will be hit by slower growth rates around the world.
Like anybody else that's an energy importer, Taiwan's been hit. I mean, so it's going to affect it. There's no question about it, and they've reacted. They've had to raise interest rates, which is going to have an effect on growth.
While countries across the world are seeing growing economic uncertainty, it's Europe, which is closer to the war in Ukraine, that is bearing the brunt of the fallout, and where rising prices are expected to fuel more unrest this winter. Alex Chen and Louise Watt for Taiwan Plus.
Taoyuan firefighters have won an international competition that's all about saving lives in the most difficult conditions. Jaime Ocon explains.
These firefighters from across Taiwan's northern city of Taoyuan are champions. They had the best scores at this year's National Pre-Hospital Care Championship in Malaysia, a competition that tests their ability to respond to a medical emergency in the wild.
非常开心能够得到这份奖项的殊荣，感谢就是团队及我们带队官，然后还有就是我们的后勤小组，然后就是的训练，然后让我们可以在这个比赛中得到国际组的冠军。
The competition is held annually and hosted in Malaysia. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it hasn't been held since 2019. The team from Taiwan used this time to practice on their own, but even then, the course still proved to be a challenge.
初赛的时候，那个越野障碍赛，我们在那个充满泥泞的坡道上，然后我们这样匍匐前进，然后又钻过像下水道的涵洞，那这个过程是非常的艰辛。
One of the most difficult parts of the competition involved making a stretcher out of bamboo and carrying a victim to safety. The team's training paid off, and Taiwan was the only team to score above 90, blowing away the competition.
要把我们自己团队该有的素质还有能力表现出来，那最后终究有拿到了这个冠军。
As the team returns to Taiwan, citizens from their hometown can rest easy, knowing they have one of the world's best groups of first responders. Ricky and Jaime Ocon for Taiwan Plus.
Taiwan's Forestry Bureau has been monitoring UMASS, a Formosan black bear, ever since he was caught in a trap 2 years ago. Since being released to the wild, UMASS has been wearing a collar to keep track of his movements and health. Bing Wang has more.
This is UMASS, a Formosan black bear. They are considered one of Taiwan's national mascots. The bears mostly live in the mountains where they may encounter traps left by hunters, sometimes with deadly consequences. 2 years ago, UMASS stepped on a trap and injured his right foreleg. Doctors were forced to amputate the limb. He was released back into the wild after an 8-month recovery. Taiwan's Forestry Bureau fitted UMASS with a collar so they can track his movements and study his behavior. Earlier this week, they caught up with UMASS and found him to be in good health and moving around well, despite missing one leg.
它活动范围这么的大，那可以攀爬坡度也有到50度的这样子的一个坡度，那周边的食源看起来也是非常的丰富。
The Forestry Bureau removed the tracking collar, but will use other methods to keep tabs on UMASS's health and movements.
会启动一个长期的监测，那监测就是我们会架设一些红外线照相机。
The Formosan black bear is considered an endangered species in Taiwan, and the bear's numbers continue to decline. The Council of Agriculture is setting up programs and incentives to get people more interested in helping to protect the species, letting bears like UMASS live their lives in peace. Andy Xue and Bing Wong for Taiwan Plus.
Taiwan has won its 5th game in a row at the Under-23s Baseball World Cup, beating defending champions Venezuela 4-3 in a nail-biter on Tuesday. Team Taiwan won in the bottom of the 8th inning when center fielder Zhang Chenzhuo hit a walk-off single to score a run. Taiwan was the only undefeated team in the opening rounds and will advance to this super round with the #1 seed. Thank you for watching Taiwan Plus News. Remember to download the Taiwan Plus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, today we'll leave you with images of an immersive art gallery that feels like a giant dazzling cake in Los Angeles. I'm Yin Khvat. Take care and see you next time.